Morning, everyone, as you're all logging in and getting ready to hear about the awesomeness that is UC Merced Chemistry and our PhD program. We'll wait just a couple of minutes to make sure that everyone who's trying to get in can get in, and then we'll get started, all right? Thank you all so much for coming this morning or afternoon or whatever time it is where you are. Feel free, if you have questions, to pop them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go along. So just to give you a heads up as to what we're going to do today, I'll start. It's a very general overview of UC Merced and the chemistry program. But of course, things like this wouldn't be able to happen if it wasn't for the amazing work of our grad admissions committee, Dr. Sukenik, Dr. Arevalo, Dr. Merg, and Dr. Larson, and the wonderful support we receive from our graduate division here. So thanks, Jess, and thanks, Martine, for helping us out this morning. Now, the order we're going to go in is Dr. Larson will go first, talking about theory, and then we'll move on to Dr. Arevalo talking about organic and organometallic chemistry, and Dr. Merg will talk a little bit about sort of physical and materials chemistry, and then we'll move finally to Dr. Sukenik, who'll talk about more bio-related chemistry. You have these different streams, and you'll see that in just a second when I present my slides. Okay, so I'll just quickly ask if everyone can see the first page of the slide deck.
Maybe, Michael, I'll just add that at the end of every session, there's going to be a few minutes for questions, but we probably won't be able to answer everything. So it's also great if you just type your questions into the chat, and either us, one of the faculty, or one of the grad admissions staff, Martina or Jessica, will answer. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think we still have some people coming in, but in the interest of your time, let's go ahead and get started. So again, welcome very much to today's webinar. We're going to talk to you a little bit about the PhD program we have here at UC Merced in chemistry and biochemistry, and why we think this is just such an exciting time for you all to be considering graduate school, and in particular considering graduate school here in the Central Valley at UC Merced. So this is me. I'm Michael Findlater. I'm an organic and organometallic chemist. You'll hear a little bit about my research later on. But my job in the next few minutes is just to sort of give you an overview, talk a little bit about our program, tell you a little bit about Merced, and also give you sort of a bullet point version of the application process. See if I can actually, there we go. So we're UC Merced. We're located in the Central Valley of California. Here's some pictures, some from campus and some from the surrounding area. This waterfall is not actually on our campus, but it's pretty close by. We are the 10th and newest UC in the UC system. The first was Berkeley, and we are now number 10. Berkeley is the only other UC that's on the semester system. Everyone else is on quarters. So basically, we're just like UC Berkeley, if you're considering graduate school. We have a very beautiful campus. One really interesting thing is that we are constantly growing and expanding the footprint of our campus, and also our research and our teaching is constantly evolving and expanding. And you can see this here in this picture on the right-hand side. This is an aerial view of campus. you'll see that we're in just a very beautiful location. We have sort of rivers running through and around campus. We're right next to a natural reserve. And the sort of top part of the screen, the top part of the picture you're looking at here was what we called the 2020 project. So all those, let me see if we can turn a laser pointer on here. There we go. So sort of everything's in this direction here was part of the 2020 project. And so these are all brand new buildings. In fact, this building right here is the most important building on campus because that's where my lab is. That's BSP. So that's a brand new lab space that we have. And in fact, just this last semester, I was part of a bunch of meetings talking about the 2030 project. So we're already planning on what our next big building will be. And so we're sort of thinking about expanding in this direction and over in this direction as well, with a whole new series of buildings. But that's more about sort of the campus as a whole and all the exciting infrastructure and building that's going to happen on campus as we expand. Probably more interesting for all of you logging on today is, of course, what we're doing in terms of chemistry. Our department currently has 27 faculty, either primary in chemistry and biochemistry or as adjunct faculty. And you'll see some names of the adjunct faculty as we go through the slides, talking about our different expertise, talking about our different emphasis areas, okay? We currently have 64 grad students. We're, of course, always looking to expand. What I will say, though, is that ratio of faculty to graduate students means that you get a very much hands-on mentoring experience if you come to UC Merced to pursue your PhD. I'll also say then that what you're going to hear about today is these different emphasis areas as we go through. Theoretical chemistry has a very strong suit here in our department. Henrik will talk about that. Then we have organic and aromatic. Rebecca will talk about that. Then materials and sort of physical chemistry. Andre will cover those topics. And then finally, Shahar will talk about biochemistry and molecular biophysics. We also have a number of well-funded research centers here on campus. And I think this probably needs to be updated. I think we actually have more than this now, in fact. But some of these are supported by grants from the NSF, grants from NASA. We're constantly looking to expand our research areas, in fact, of research centers. We're actually, from funds from the University of California and from the state, we'll be actually starting a new climate research institute early in the next year. And that institute will have sub-centers focused in all sorts of different areas. Green chemistry and sustainability will be one of those focus areas in these new centers. Now, thanks to our location, we're actually really close by to national labs. So we have Lawrence Livermore National Lab and also Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And we also have access to Sandia National Labs in Livermore. And we have a number of faculty who actually have adjunct appointments both at UC Merced and at the National Lab, which really opens up a whole range of really cool science you can do. The National Labs have all the toys. So we get to do really cutting edge science through those collaborations that we have with the nearby labs. And of course, if you have questions about any of these research centers, obviously ask them along the way or pop them in the chat and we'll do our best to address them. So probably more importantly for many of you who are watching the webinar right now or in the future on the recording, applications to our PhD program. I do want to start by saying this right up front. GRE scores are not required. Many schools, although not all, but many schools have gotten rid of the GRE requirement. And so if you have taken it already and you have a score, then feel free to include it. It's optional. It does give us just an extra bit of information about you, but it's no longer required. Okay, so it's a fully optional consideration. In terms of putting the most competitive application together, the admissions committee does spend a great deal of time reading your personal statements and your recommendation letters very carefully. Okay, so do put some time and effort into putting those documents together. In particular, if you have done undergraduate research, then that's a really good thing to talk about because it really helps us see where you might fit in our program. But that's absolutely, again, not a strict requirement. If there is a faculty member you hear about today on the webinar, or if you've gone to the website and you've learned a little bit about their research and there's someone you're interested in working with, then feel free to reach out. Believe me, professors love nothing more than hearing that people are interested in their research, and will gladly talk about it all day long. So if there is someone that you find that you're interested in working with, please shoot them an email. If nothing else, then they can help draw the committee's attention to your application and say, hey, this person seems really interested and eager. And I know that I and some of the other faculty will also reach out via a Zoom call. I love to reach out when students reach out to me, and we'll have a quick Zoom chat and just see, if it is a really good fit between us and the department and the mentor. So again, use those statements wisely, okay? Really what you're trying to do, and this applies not just to our program, to any program you might be applying to, okay? Try and translate your enthusiasm. Why is it that you want to do a PhD, okay? PhDs are wonderful things. Everyone on the faculty has one, right? So clearly we found value in doing a PhD. It's a great time to really push the envelope of your research. You're going to be working at the cutting edge of science. And of course, what that really means is that what you're doing is advancing knowledge. Okay, so show us that you're excited about that. Show us you're enthusiastic. That's the best way to make a good impression in these statements. Okay, and again, just as a nuts and bolts thing, the deadline for applications is January 15th. So if you start now or in the near future, you'll have plenty of time to put together a really good looking application. Okay, so how does the mentorship model work here at UC Merced? Okay, and I want to make sure that I'm not talking too much because I want to leave lots of time for people to present the research. Okay, so how does the mentorship model work? Mostly you'll find one faculty mentor or advisor, okay? And then the research you do will be conducted in their under their supervision in their research group. But at the same time, there's absolutely scope for you to have co-advisors. If there's two people you really want to work with and there's an obvious overlap in their research that they can work together with you, then absolutely that's something that we can handle. Now, in terms of mentorship, making sure that you're making good progress and that we're doing everything we can to support you, we do have annual meetings between you and your mentor with an advisory committee. And that committee is usually put together with 2 to 3 other faculty members, somewhat in your area, so they can talk meaningfully about your research. But we also typically include someone who's not in your area to give sort of a broader perspective. And we found that this yearly check-in where we do a little bit of paperwork, we talk about what you've achieved in the last year, what your goals are for the next year, has really transformed our mentorship model here at UC Merced. And it's something that we're very proud of, and we think our students are very well supported. This is going to look the same most everywhere you go if you're applying to other programs, although you really shouldn't. You should just apply here. No, you should apply broadly, make sure you've got lots of choices. We typically have an orientation week when you first start, and that's typically held sometime in August. That sort of gets you up to speed with the campus. You get to meet the other graduate students, both in chemistry and other graduate students from other disciplines. So you start to build that sort of sense of community and belonging. In terms of coursework, obviously you're now moving on to an advanced degree. So we typically provide graduate level coursework. 4 classes is normal for the PhD, and you take those in your first 1 to 2 years. I was going to say to get them out of the way, but of course, they're very valuable for building up your knowledge base. So it's not so much about getting them out of the way. It's more about making sure that you have that solid foundation to then push on into your research. You're given the first year to be accepted into a research group. We do not require you to do research rotations, but they're absolutely an option that's available to you. So if you identify 2 or 3 groups that you could see yourself joining, we give you time at the beginning of the first year to rotate through those groups and make sure you can see what the research is really like, see what the lab culture is like, see if it's going to be a good fit for you over the next 4, 5, 6 years. We have some journal-based exams where we'll give you a paper from the literature. you'll go away and you'll read it, and then you'll be asked questions about that paper. There's a requirement that you give an open technical talk each year. That can also be a poster. Preferably it would be at a conference, but we do have departmental seminars and we have departmental poster presentations every year to make sure that you're getting that practice in communicating your science to other scientists. And then you'll advance to candidacy around about your second or early third year. And after that, you're off to the races. Then you're just in a sprint to do the great work that we know you're all capable of doing and finishing up your dissertation and your PhD and moving on to wonderful, amazing things next. I will say that the numbers that are on this slide should be pretty accurate. Your pay, for example, will not be below that number. In fact, it could be potentially higher than that number. We just went through a renegotiation and some salaries changed at the PhD and postdoc level. And this number is from last year, I believe. So that number, if anything, will be higher when you start your PhD fall next year, okay? So in terms of financial support, most people are supported at least at the beginning of their PhD program as a TA. So you've probably had TAs, as an undergraduate in your labs and in your lecture classes. This is a 50% appointment, so about 20 hours a week is your TA. There's one semester that's required, but usually you'll end up TAing for 1 to 2 years. And if your advisor has funding in the form of a grant or foundation money, then they can typically put you on to what we call a GSR, which is a graduate student researcher. I mean, that essentially takes the place of the TA as a 50% appointment. There are many fellowships that our students successfully compete for and receive, both NSF, GRFPs. But we also have internal fellowships. And of course, the Department of Energy has many fellowships to apply to as well. Healthcare is included, but I do want to make clear that any spouses or domestic partners and children are not included in that healthcare, but they can be added for an extra fee. Okay. If you're a TA or a GSR, then typically your tuition and most of your fees will be covered. Okay. The department also has money to help support you, and graduate division also has money to help to support you to travel to conferences to make sure that you're getting that experience going to conferences, presenting your work. We also have the GRISE program, which is an NIH supported program that supports research in these different areas. So that's actually an option as you go through the application process. If you think that your research area lines up with any of these areas, then you should feel free. There's a drop-down menu to indicate that you're interested in the GRISE program. And this will actually pay for your stipend. This will actually pay for your salary if you're part of the GRISE program. So again, I would encourage you to take a look through, and you can look up GRISE by Googling GRISE UC Merced, poke around a little bit. And if you think that your research area fits into one of these programs, then by all means, please use that drop-down menu and we'll give you consideration for joining the GRISE program. Now, there's a lot of considerations when you're thinking about different places to go for your graduate education. I'll just throw this one out here, that of all the UCs, the 10 different UC campuses, I've got them sort of listed here. We do really rather well. We are a research university. We're publishing leading work in many areas. All of our faculty are fantastic, phenomenal researchers who have a track record of just amazing productivity. But the nice thing is, it's also, you can afford to live here. And I don't think that that should not be a consideration, okay? And obviously we want you focused on the science, but you also have to live and enjoy where you live. So I'll say that of the campuses, UC Merced is by far the most affordable city to live in when you compare it to the other UCs, okay? There are lots of places to go and hang out and have fun. And of course, there's Yosemite National Park, a short drive away. We have easy access. If you want to go up to the city, there's a train that takes you up to San Francisco. You can go down to LA, out to San Jose. So there are lots of great things you can do. I was a little sad last night when I was changing these slides. There's a really great taco place called J&R Tacos that I used to love going to, and they sadly closed. So I had to very sadly delete it off of this slide, which made me, a little teary-eyed thinking about it. But yeah, there's obviously great places to go here in town. And if you do come, you'll obviously immediately be tapped into that existing graduate student network, and they can let you know about all the cool things you can do in and around Merced. When you do graduate with your PhD from UC Merced, our students go on and do amazing, wonderful things. They go on and accept positions in national labs. So there's our postdocs you can do at national labs, or you can be on your way to being a staff scientist. You can become an academic. Right now, one of my postdocs is applying and had a number of interviews for academic positions. We also send our students to industry. All these companies are places where our students have gone in the last few years. My student went to Intel. A student in Ryan Baxter's lab went on to another pharma company down in San Diego. So there are many different things that a PhD from UC Merced will allow you to do as a next step in your career. And I'll also say that our faculty are wonderfully supportive, and our campus in general provides all sorts of really great resources to help you in your career and where you want to get to after your PhD. So with that, again, I don't want to take up too much time because I want to leave time for people to talk about their research. But of course, if you have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them as we move on to other topics and other speakers.
So maybe I can take one question from the chat. So Azam asks if they need to pass prerequisite courses for chemistry and biochemistry major. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the preliminary exams and quals. Do you want to talk about that, Michael? Do you want me to talk about it a little bit?
Oh, feel free to jump in, yeah.
Sure. So when you start out with the program, in general, in the first year or so, we have all our incoming class take what we call preliminary exams. So these are exams that generally rely on reading of scientific papers, usually kind of high-profile papers that our faculty pick. And the incoming grads need to, or sorry, the grads at this point need to answer a series of questions, about basically kind of scientific comprehension of the main points of the paper. And so usually people take anything between 2 or 3 of these preliminary exams, which involve, again, reading a scientific paper and then answering a series of questions. Actually, it turns out the cohorts do it together. So it's also kind of a team building exercise. And you have to score a certain amount of points in order to fully qualify into the program and start TAing. And so that's maybe the first kind of test that you encounter as a graduate student in the program. Then after anything between 2 to 3 years, you go through what's called the qualifying exam. This is an exam where you basically describe your research to your thesis committee or your PhD committee, generally composed of 3 faculty members and your advisor. And over there, the topic really is an in-depth discussion of your research topic, right? And again, that happens after 2 or 3 years in the program, at which point you generally already have a good idea of what it is you're doing. So I hope that answered the question.
Morteza, I see you have your hand up. You should feel free to unmute and ask a question if you have one. Maybe we'll take 1 or 2 more questions and then move on. So Morteza,
Yes, thank you. Is my voice clear?
Perfect.
I have a question. How does the university support interdisciplinary research with the field of chemistry or biochemistry?
Great question. So I would say that the university is very interested in supporting interdisciplinary research. That's going to depend, like the actual, to really answer your question, the really nitty gritty answer is that'll also depend on your advisor. And that would be a great thing to talk to them about. Maybe reach out before you apply. If there's someone you're interested in working with, you email them and you say, I'm really excited about your science. I'm thinking about applying to UC Merced, but I'm really excited about interdisciplinary work. How do you see supporting that? And then that'd be a conversation you have back and forth with your advisor.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Nodari? I think we'll do one more question, then we'll move on. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I have a question regarding the application itself. So I graduated San Diego State University this year. I got a degree in biochemistry, and I'm currently in my home country in Georgia in Europe. And I'm still wondering, do I still need to apply for TOEFL or IELTS or anything for the application?
I'm sorry, you graduated from a UC?
San Diego State University.
Oh, then you're
yeah.
Yeah, then I don't want to speak too much for the admissions people, but I think in that case you're fine. If you did your, I believe there's an exemption. There's a link in the chat. You can go and click on it and see exemptions. But I'm pretty sure that if you got your degree from a US institution, then it's waived. So you should be good. I got my undergraduate degree back home in Scotland. And when I actually moved to the US for my PhD, I had to beg and plead for a waiver for the English exam. Now, I know I'm sometimes hard to understand, but it was a bit frustrating to have to beg and plead for a waiver. Anyway, so thank you so much for those questions. If you have more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll try and answer them as we go along, or email them to me. I'm happy to answer those questions as well by email. But in the interest of protecting everyone's time, we might want to move on to our first research presentation.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Everyone can hear me? So yeah, I will present. I'm Henrik Larsson, theory faculty at UC Merced, and I will present the theory groups we have. We have quite a few of them. So we are part of a big center for chemical computation theory, and we have right now 7 faculty doing research in that area. And 6 of them are core faculty, and the 7th, Dr. Strube, is in physics, but affiliated with chemistry, so you could also do a PhD there. And we also work closely together on some projects. So we'll now go through all of them and present the research. But I also wanted to mention that we are all actually in the same building, and in fact, on the same corridor. And the 6 chemistry faculty are in like one big theory hub, which is quite nice, so that everyone is together, and there's a kind of a theory community here at Merced. So the Colvin, I will now go through the different research groups, and the Colvin group is doing biomolecular dynamic simulations. So focusing on how to understand biology in terms of molecular dynamics. And he's, for example, interested in protein binding and disorder proteins. And working closely with people in the bio department disciplinarily. The Russian group is doing electronic structure theory, both applications and method developments. And he's interested in general in exploring potential energy surfaces, for example, in terms of spectroscopy, such as photoelectron spectroscopy of small clusters, as well as method development to develop methods that accurately treat potential energy surfaces, for example. And there's a Tripam-Jones group who is doing method development in density functional theory, interesting, and there she's interested in testing limits of these theories, and it's interesting application, for example, in plasma, where we have warm dense matter. Then there's a group, Liang Shi. He is doing classical molecular dynamics simulations, for example, of condensed phase systems, and there he is interested in spectroscopy applications and also in machine learning approaches to describe these systems. Next, we have a group, Christine Eastbourne. She is interested in also dynamics in condensed phase, and then in particular about excited states and solvation, and as well. And once we have excited states, there are a lot of applications in photochemistry and charge transfer. Next, there's my group. I'm essentially interested in complex quantum systems, both in terms of method development and understanding them, kind of disentangling different quantum systems, and this is both for vibrations in molecules and also the electronic structure. And this focus both on dynamics and also the quantum eigenfunctions. And lastly, we have the group of David Struber. As said, he is in physics, but he also accepts theory students, chemistry students. And he's interested in condensed phase electronic structure and materials. And for example, trying to understand the excited states and other electronic properties that we have in these condensed phase systems. And then he's applying methods he's developing based on density function theory and other theories to interesting materials such as perovskites or 2D materials. And finally, we're all doing chemistry on a computer, so we need actually good computers. And in Merced, we have pretty good resources. We have our own UC wide cluster, which is brand new. It's just less than 1 year old, and that has 93 nodes, including a GPU and high memory nodes. So we are well equipped for the research we are doing. And in addition, many groups have their own clusters or also have additional nodes on that Pinnacle cluster that only they have access to. And if that is not enough, then we apply to national computing resources such as Merced. These are big clusters with thousands of nodes. And our faculty has had quite some success getting access to these clusters. And for learning how to work on these clusters, the department is responsible for that, is running workshops on various different aspects of computing. And then we also, since we have so many faculty in that area, we also offer a lot of grad classes on topics so that you're well prepared for the research. So that ranges from standard quantum chemistry and statistical thermodynamics to more advanced molecular electronic structure theory and including density function theory, but also you have classes on computational physics, scientific computing, and also data science and machine learning. So with that, I'm done. And just as Michael already said, if you have any questions or would like to know more about the research group, feel free to just write them an email, corresponding faculty, and then all of us will be more than happy to talk more about our research and maybe have a separate Zoom meeting as well. Otherwise, if you have any questions, please let me know. there's one question in the chat: has your department worked with AI development? So that is, AI is probably here meaning artificial intelligence. And yes, to Viva, these some of our faculty work on machine learning approaches. So I mentioned the group of Liang Shi. She's working on that. I know Aurora Puram-Jones is working on that as well. And myself, the methods I'm developing are have a close connections to machine learning approaches such as neural networks.
Thanks, Henrik. I'm realizing in the interest of time, I think we should try and move the research presentations along. So if any questions pop up, and maybe pop them in the chat or send an email to the presenter. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's me next. I'm trying to see if I can share my screen because right now, oh yes, I can do it. Okay. Thank you, Jessica. Okay, so here we are. So my name is Rebecca Revelo. I'm a faculty member at UC Merced since 2020. And I'm part of the faculty who works in organometallic and organic chemistry. So we are basically experimentalists, although sometimes we also collaborate with computational people to help us to understand, for example, the mechanisms of our reactions. So in this first slide, basically what you see is how your life is going to look like if you decide to go for experimental science. So most of the day you need to spend in the lab, running your reactions, collecting data, and interpreting that data with the help of your advisor. So this is us. So it's not a big group, but we are doing really cool science, and I think we have really good synergies between us. We have Professor Ryan Baxter. He's focused in organic synthesis, catalysis, and physical organic chemistry. I myself, I'm focused on organometallic catalysis and coordination chemistry, and also mechanistic studies. And Professor Michael Finlater, you have met before. He is also working in organometallic catalysis and organic synthesis. So I like to say Michael is kind of the bridge between Ryan and I. So he is the one who is really in the inorganic chemistry side and the organic chemistry side. So he has both things. And then we have Professor Jessica Wang. So she's more in the materials side of the chemical synthesis. So she makes cool materials. Oops. So the three of us, Ryan, me, and Michael, belong to the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry, but Jessica belongs to the Department of Material Science and Engineering. That doesn't mean anything from your point of view as a student. It's just we are in different departments. So let's start talking a little bit about the chemistry that Ryan is doing. So let me see. Okay, there we go. So Ryan has a background in physical organic chemistry, but he has done really cool organic synthetic chemistry. So in his lab, they have actually discovered a new reagent, which is this one I'm showing here, that is capable of putting nitroso groups in organic molecules. So they are working with synthetic cannabinoids, trying to put nitroso groups in these molecules. So they want to put nitroso groups because this type of group is a known vasodilator. So it's really useful from the point of view of medicinal chemistry. So these are molecules that are going to have huge impact in medicinal chemistry. Another research line they have in the Baxter lab is related to studying photophysical properties of organic molecules. So they have been able to synthesize this type of organic molecule, and they have discovered that it shows unique properties from the point of view of photophysics. So these molecules are capable to emit light at very specific wavelengths. So they are still studying what kind of applications these molecules can find, but as you can imagine, it might be really useful for OLEDs and that kind of technology. So If you are interested in the research in the Baxter Lab, please feel free to email him at any time and to discuss more about his research. So the next one is my lab. So we are mostly focused and interested in studying, discovering new catalysts, employing transition metals, and studying the mechanism for the transformation. So the type of transformations we are interested in are those which allow us to functionalize inert bonds. So what I'm showing you here is a carbon-hydrogen bond activation and a carbon-boron bond formation. So bonds that are really tough to break, bonds that are highly inert, those are the ones we are interested in. So we currently have a couple of projects ongoing where we have discovered that depending on the ligand, on this part of the molecule here I'm pointing at, depending on the ligand that we have at the transition metal center, we can tune the chemoselectivity of the reaction. So we can actually do either the functionalization of the triple bond when we have this ligand at the top here and get to the alkene, or do the carbon-hydrogen bond activation of this alkyne and get to a functionalized alkyne. So in general, we are working with earth-abundant transition metals, so that it stands in line with the standards of sustainable chemistry. And these are just other type of bond activation we are interested in. So carbon fluorine, they are the strongest bonds in organic chemistry and therefore the hardest bonds to break, and also aromatic carbon-carbon. So that will allow us to open rings like benzene rings and other aromatic rings and get to linear molecules like that one I'm showing you here. So in general, we are interested in discovering new synthetic methods and discovering new catalysts and also understanding how they work, so we can design in the future improved catalysts. The Finnair Lab, so they have a really cool project we are kind of collaborating in, where they have discovered that some bench-stable nickel catalysts are capable of doing cool catalytic processes. So they are working on developing these new nickel complexes that can be used under air, because all the chemistry I showed you previously in my slide is chemistry that requires of anhydrous conditions and working under inert atmosphere. So all the compounds are pretty sensitive to air and moisture, but they have discovered some transition metal complexes with nickel that survive under air. So everything is easier to handle. So I really think that is the direction where we all should be going. So then they are also working on carbon dioxide reduction. So this is really important from the point of view of the greenhouse effect. So you have here one really complicated picture of how to handle carbon dioxide, but really the part where we as chemists are interested in is in discovering reactions or discovering catalysts that are able to functionalize carbon dioxide to make other molecules that can be used for further synthesis. So just take something that is not useful, take something that is harmful to the environment, and try to upgrade that molecule to something that might be useful for synthesis. Another project they have ongoing is one where they focus on trying to recycle palladium catalysts. So you know that palladium is a really expensive transition metal. So one way to make palladium chemistry sustainable is to be able to recover the catalyst and reuse it in another process. So after it does the process, we recover it and we can reuse it for other reactions. So they use this type of ligands which are specifically designed to enable this recycling process. And then the last one is about electrochemistry. So they also do electrochemistry. So the reaction I'm showing you here is just the allylation of ketones or alcohols. And so this is transition metal free chemistry. So it's just using electrochemistry. And the last one, but not the least important, is the lab of Jessica Wan. So she has a more, I would say, engineering perspective in her research. So she is trying to develop new materials, taking inspiration from nature. So this is the top image that you see here. So they develop new materials and they study the properties. So she has a team that is highly interdisciplinary, where you can find chemists, but also engineers, because they are the ones who actually study the properties of the new materials. So feel free also to reach here and to reach all of us if you have any question about our research or there are specific points that you want to discuss. So in this slide, I just wanted to show you a little bit about the equipment we use in this organic and organometallic track. So as I told you before, some of our compounds are air and moisture sensitive, so we need to work using inner atmosphere techniques. So that involves using glove boxes, which is this thing you have here, where you have an air atmosphere inside, and you just go inside the gloves and you set up your reactions inside the box. We also use shrink lines. So these basically allow you to do the same, but just in the hood without having to go into the glove box. As for spectroscopic techniques, we have React IR. So that one allows us to monitor reactions by IR spectroscopy. We have a really good NMR facility with 4 instruments that we use all the time. In my lab is the technique we mostly rely on to characterize our products and also to study our reactions from a mechanistic point of view. And we also have a facility for LCMS, and then we also have some GCMS. Those are typically in the labs, either GC or GCMS, gas chromatography, coupled with mass spectrometry. So regarding courses, we have courses that are with a background that is more organic and some with a background that is more inorganic, but there is a really good synergy between these 2 blocks, and I typically recommend all my students to take courses from both perspectives because the research we do is really at the interface between organic and inorganic. So for the organic ones, we have advanced organic synthesis, organic and organometallic reaction mechanisms, and physical organic chemistry. For the inorganic ones, you will be able to choose between reactions and reactivity of organometallic chemistry, advanced inorganic chemistry, and structure and properties of materials. So that's all on my side. So if there are any questions, I don't know how we are doing on time. Maybe we may have time for one question. Thanks everyone for listening, and thanks everyone for attending today.
Awesome, Rebecca. Thank you so much. I think in the interest of time, we'll skip right along. If that's okay. If you have questions, please feel free to follow up with Professor Arevalo.
Okay, welcome everyone. So my name's Andrea Merg. I also started in 2020. I'm an assistant professor, and I'll just talk kind of in the interest of time, just real briefly over some of the research that's going on in this area. So, you know, we have a really diverse interdisciplinary research. I mean, materials chemistry just by itself is just a really interdisciplinary field. So we have a lot of, you know, chemistry and biochemistry faculty, but we also have a lot of faculty in the engineering departments, and talk also a little bit about some adjunct faculty that work in national labs. The first, let's see. Sorry. So first we have the Jennifer Lee. She's actually a new faculty member here. She's starting in January, so she's definitely looking for new students to join her lab. Her group's focusing on developing a generalizable framework for the design of heterogeneous catalysts. Her group combines precisely synthesized nanostructures with catalytic testing and various characterization techniques to solve important problems in energy usage and environmental chemistry. Some of her applications include plastic upcycling and non-oxidative activation of light alkanes using early transition metal alloys. Then we have so my lab, we're really interested in developing programmable biomaterials using sort of peptides as our molecular building blocks. So we're interested in creating artificial protein-like constructs from peptides in using some of the different folding motifs found in biology. Tao's lab is developing and using a variety of techniques in biophysical chemistry, surface chemistry, and materials chemistry to study and control the interfaces between DNA and nanomaterial. So they have some really cool research. His lab is doing some really cool research on developing techniques to use DNA to organize plasmonic nanoparticles. and also developing AFM techniques as well to be able to probe these biomolecules and use them as sensors. The Nguyen Lab is interested in studying the photocatalytic properties of plasmonic nanoparticles, engineering these nanocrystals, studying the mechanism in ground and photoexcited states. And then Ann Kelly Lab her research is focused on using the inelastic laser light scattering technique, which is resonance Raman spectroscopy, to study the specific atomic level motions that occur in the molecule or nanocrystal immediately after it absorbs light. Jessica Wang, so I won't go through her slide just because Rebecca already talked with her, but she does a lot of research in materials chemistry as well. And we have a couple other faculty. So we have David Kelly, whose group uses ultra-fast optical spectroscopy to examine the optical and electronic properties of semiconductors and semiconductor nanoparticles. And Alex Noy, who's actually he's an adjunct faculty, so he also has a lab in Lawrence Livermore National Lab. So this is an opportunity to really understand a little bit more some of the research going on in national labs and also have partnerships. So if you're interested in potential career in national labs, Alexander Noy, this may be an avenue or maybe a good place to start. But his research focused on using 1D nanoelectronic materials such as carbon nanotubes and silicon nanowires to construct electronic devices that incorporate functional biological membrane proteins, channels, and pumps. He also studies the nanofluidic properties of carbon nanotubes as well to be used as artificial membrane channels. And so facilities and instrumentation. So there's a lot, this requires a lot of microscopy instrumentation in particular. And there's an imaging and microscopy facility at UC Merced, houses an electron microscope that has cryo-electron capabilities. There's also an SEM as well, a scanning electron microscopy. So these are used to characterize the morphology and topology of these materials. Actually, I think Michael Finlatter just was successful in getting a new piece of equipment, a single crystal X-ray diffractometer. So that's going to be a really welcome addition to the department. There's also atomic force microscopes and CD spectrometers that several colleagues have. And just being a sort of a new young university, we often share a lot of our equipments with each other. And just lastly, some of the typical classes you can see here, there's a lot of chemistry classes, but also there's a lot of engineering classes that are located in the sort of the engineering catalog, the biomaterials and material science and engineering, including structure and properties of materials. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to put something in the chat.
Awesome, Andre. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we'll move on to our last research presentation, Professor Sukenik.
Hello. Okay, let me just share my screen real quick here. Okay, so thanks very much, and thanks for everyone who stayed all this time to hear the very last presenter. I really appreciate it. So I'll talk a little bit about the biochemistry and molecular biophysics program here at Merced. In general, there's been some talk of interdisciplinarity. So I think I turned this subtitle thing on, and I'm not sure how to turn it off now. That's throwing me off. So the research is extremely interdisciplinary here in the biochemistry and molecular biophysics emphasis. Labs cover a lot of different methodologies, combining both experiments, computation, and theory, using a whole bunch of cutting-edge methodologies that I'll talk a little bit about now. I want to say that in biochemistry, at least, almost all the students go through rotation programs. Part of the reason is to experience not just different methods and techniques, but also to experience different lab cultures and find ones where there's a good fit between the lab culture, the PI, and the incoming graduate students. And so just know this is certainly an option. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about that. Okay, so in terms of courses, the courses offered are advanced topics in different areas, again, pertaining to research. There's an advanced biochemistry class that a lot of the students take. There's classes offered by the quantitative and systems biology grad group that have to do with molecular and cell biology and genetics. And then there's also molecular and cellular biophysics classes. Recently, I'm teaching a course on scientific computing, especially with a ton of examples from biochemistry and biophysics, including modules on machine learning in these topics, and bioinformatics. So there's a good range of courses covering a whole bunch of different interests. And so what I have here is a very, just a very short list of all faculty members, both faculties who are primarily affiliated with the program and just affiliates. If you want to see a full list, there's a QR code right here at the bottom, and you can just take a screenshot and then look at it to see the full list and go to all the websites. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to describe a few labs that are going to be hiring in the next cycle. This doesn't mean that other people might not be hiring. I just know that these are labs that are certainly hiring, and so I wanted to present them first and foremost. So the first one is Andy Li Wang's lab. So Andy is one of our senior faculty in the program. His lab studies circadian clocks. So these are amazing biomolecular systems, generally composed of a series of proteins that kind of come together and fall apart in periodic rhythms. And over here, you can see kind of this oscillation. This is a fluorescence anisotropy trace of basically 3 proteins interacting with each other in periodic oscillations. And one oscillation here is about 24 hours. And so Andy's lab puts together these proteins in test tubes and understands what makes the clock tick, and how do, for example, changes in temperature alter the behavior of the clock. And to do this, they use a range of techniques, both NMR, so we have kind of newly refurbished cryoprobe 600 megahertz NMR on campus that is the main workhorse, as well as other fluorescent methods. The next lab I want to profile is Maria Zogby's lab. So Maria's lab looks at ABC transporters. These are critical transporters of small molecules, and specifically they look at ABC B, which is a mitochondrial transporter. So her lab does a lot of biochemistry, including fluorescence methods, and other biophysical methods in order to understand the function of these ABC transporters. The next lab is Mike Thompson's lab. So Mike studies or uses crystallography to study protein dynamics. So that might seem a little bit strange that you use crystals to study dynamics, but actually what Michael is doing is developing new crystallography techniques that allow measurement of crystal structures at really, really rapid timescales and at very hot temperatures. And so you can actually start seeing dynamics within the crystal. And so to do this, Mike's team is actually working on beamlines. So they actually drive to synchrotrons or fly out to synchrotrons. They do a lot of work in the linear accelerator in Stanford. And they build instrumentation on these beamlines. And so his lab combines both kind of technical skills as well as biochemical experiments in order to study a range of proteins. Next up is Eva de Alba's lab. So Eva is an affiliate faculty. Her main affiliation is in bioengineering. Eva's lab uses NMR and single molecule spectroscopy to study inflammation regulation. So basically looking at the molecules that make our immune system work and how they interact with other proteins. And then finally is my lab. So we are really interested in the interplay between the environment in which proteins work and the structure and function of the proteins themselves. And specifically, we're looking at intrinsically disordered proteins. So these are proteins that don't have a fixed two-dimensional structure, and that actually makes them very, very sensitive. And so in the lab, we use a combination of computational methods, including molecular dynamic and Monte Carlo simulations. We use in vitro biophysics, spectroscopy, and fluorescence, and we use live cell microscopy in order to understand how these intrinsically disordered proteins behave and function inside the cellular environment. So that was a very quick overview. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is the GRISE program that Michael mentioned very, very briefly. Let me just share another presentation about that. I hope are we still good with time? Yeah, okay. Let's see, sorry. And by the way, if there's any questions, please type them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer them even after the seminar is over. Okay, so we're going to share this. Okay, so like Michael said, said I'm not allowed to share. One sec, sorry. Okay, so the GRISE program is an NIH-funded program that will basically pay for the first 2 years of your graduate school. What that means is that incoming grads that are part of this program do not TA in the first 2 years, which is a big, I guess it's a big help when you're starting out. So it basically means that you'll be doing full-time research in the first 2 years of your program, other than, of course, taking classes. And so one thing that I do have to say, because I know there's a lot of international students in the audience, this program is eligible only for either US citizens or permanent residents. Unfortunately, these are the NIH rules, and so it's nothing that we can do anything about. But for those that can apply for this, basically by just being a member of our graduate program, you are eligible to apply for it, but your research does need to fall under one of the emphases of the program. That being said, if you're anything in the biochemistry or biophysical or molecular biophysics emphasis, you're good. And also in a lot of the material, organic, inorganic, and physical chemistry domains, you can also probably find some fit with one of the emphases here. And so you can find out more about the GRISE program online. I can just tell you it gives you the first 2 years of tuition. It supports travel to national conferences, which, by the way, yeah, I think, Michael, you mentioned is very common for our grads anyway. There are courses that are specifically for the GRISE cohort, brings them together and does professional development as well as scientific development. And there's business and entrepreneurship outreach activities for the cohort. So it's really a fantastic framework or cohort to be part of in your as you're working towards your graduate degree. And so to apply, it's actually very, very easy in the application form. By the way, in case this wasn't clear, you will be getting a fee waiver for application at the end of this webinar through email. So as you apply, all you need to do is check that you are interested in the GRISE program, and you'll need to write a few sentences or a paragraph about what it is that you hope to do that aligns with the iBioStep or the GRISE goals. And so to do that, just think of one lab that you would consider joining and how research in that lab that you might do would correspond to this, right? Nothing here is binding. It doesn't mean that that's what you'll actually do. It's just a way to assess your, you know, that you've given it a little bit of thought before just checking the yes box. And so I think with that, I am done, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I'm going to leave it off to Michael now.
Thanks, Shahar. And again, a big thank you to all the presenters today and to our wonderful help from GradDev. I don't have any inspiring words to end with, other than, you know, thank you all so much for coming. Again, in the next 24 hours or so, you should receive an email with your fee waiver for applications to UC Merced's grad program in chemistry and biochemistry. It will have a code in there that's unique to the webinar. Hi, Kat. It wouldn't be a Zoom if someone's cat didn't show up on the camera at some point. So yeah, maybe if you come and join Rebecca's lab, you get to play with a wonderful cat. No, we're so happy we're all here. If you have any questions, obviously, you can put them in the chat right now, or follow up with an email to any one of us, and we'll do our best to answer them. I believe it was mentioned earlier, Martine mentioned that I believe the webinar has been recorded, so it will go up on YouTube. I believe the link is in the chat, so you'll be able to go back and revisit this webinar if there's anything that you missed or wanted to hear more about. Again, I encourage you to watch that, send emails, ask questions. That's what we're here for.
Jess, do you want to maybe say something about the fee waivers and how they'll be coming in?
Yeah, so everybody look out in your email. Probably my goal is to get it out in maybe like the next 3 or 4 hours. You will get a message, it has a code, and then make sure that you save that message, because we're going to ask you to upload a copy to your application. And then my email will be in there, so if you have questions, just feel free to email me directly and I'll help you with processing and all that good stuff. But other than that, my team also does webinars, so if you have more questions, join us at one of those and we can help you with the application too.
Wonderful. Okay, in that case, have a fantastic day. And again, please reach out with any questions you have. It was great to see you all, and I hope you learned a little bit about our program. Thank you all so much.